Welcome to Rockwood Connects, the educational, informational, and entertaining podcast of the Rockwood School District. I'm Dr. Cassandra Suggs.
And I'm Emily Walshaw.
And you know we always bring you the best of the best, and this month is no exception. We have our very own Dr. Kelly Sollberger. She's the Director of Human Resources here in the Rockwood School District, and she's going to tell us everything about human resources and just having a job and doing well at it. How about that? All right, so we'll get started right now.
All right, Kelly, I'm going to ask you your first question. When people think about human resources, they have all sorts of ideas, interpretations. Can you give us a little insight on what the Rockwood School District Human Resources Department does?
Yeah, so Rockwood School District Human Resources is really in charge of taking care of our most important resource that we have in a school district, which is our people. The people who are serving our students and taking care of our schools and running our communications department. All of those areas are people run. So human resources takes care of that resource.
Okay.
I love that answer. It is our most precious commodity.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly, now you were a former teacher and administrator, so can you tell us a little bit about that and how you decided to switch over to human resources?
Yeah, so I have always loved putting teams together. So even when I was a teacher, I was coaching cheerleading. And I loved the whole idea of when I would put my team together of cheerleaders, I was looking for all of the different pieces of the puzzle. Now, I was also looking for how I would grow those athletes and make them even better so that they could fill a particular role on the team. So that was just something that I enjoyed. It was intriguing to me. I knew I wanted to go into administration, though. So when I was a teacher leader, I joined one of the district improvement plan committees. And that committee was the highly talented workforce. And so it was a whole committee about learning how do you recruit teachers, how do you retain them, how do you put the right teachers in the right spot. And when I realized there was an entire job that could do all of the things that I loved, I knew that that was what I wanted to do. So from there on out, I continued to seek out opportunities and leadership positions that would give me that human resources experience, because a lot of teachers and administrators don't have the HR background. No. I don't. Like I always say, like I'm an instructional leader who's working in human resources. So then when I moved into an administrator role, it continued to be my favorite part. I loved hiring the teachers. I loved working with them to write their growth plans and set goals and monitor the goals and give feedback, the coaching piece again. And I also got to work with our new teachers, which was so fun, because that group, I was constantly figuring out how do I help them feel like they belong? How do I give them whatever resources they need to be successful in their job and want to stay in their job? So still kind of feeding that interest that I had in human resources. And then when my current position came available, I knew it was perfect for me. It was all of my favorite things combined into one. So that's how I got here.
And you're very organized. Were you that way as a kid still kind of coaching, do you think?
I am a recovering type A person. So,
Yeah. Okay, so a little bit different of a question. For individuals who are wanting to pursue a career in education, like the world of it, so counselor, librarian, any aspect of that, do you have any tips for those individuals as they go through the interview and hiring process?
Yeah, so starting with the application, because before you get to the interview and hiring process, you have to have your application done correctly. That's the first thing that I think kind of weeds people out sometimes. So I would say making sure that you're applying for the positions that you're actually certified in. So being real careful that you have the correct certification for that position, making sure all parts of your application are complete. And what I mean for that is, if it's asking for 2 references, including your current or most recent supervisor, make sure you have a reference from them. Reach out to your reference and say, hey, I've applied for this position. Can you look for an online reference check for me so that I actually will be considered? Because sometimes if a candidate doesn't have any of their references in, that can also be construed as a red flag of why didn't their supervisor fill out their reference check. So making sure that you have all of the parts of the application done is a good first step. Making sure you're actually certified for the position that you are applying for is also good. And then once you get that call for the interview, it's still important to dress professionally. I am surprised by how many people will come in for a teacher interview not dressed professionally. So that might be a blazer like we all have on now, or it could just be a shirt and slacks or things like that. But I did meet with the elementary principals actually maybe a couple months ago, and I asked them, I said, what are you seeing? And they brought up a lot of times, people just come in not very professional looking or prepared. So making sure that you're prepared for the interview, and then just being yourself. When I'm interviewing people, I'm looking for people who are student-centered, that everything that they're doing revolves around what they're doing for the students versus adults. You can't teach someone to love children. Like, you either do or you don't. You can't fake it either.
Yeah.
So just making sure that you're showing your personality and who you are in the positions that you're interviewing. And I personally look for somebody who's really student-centered.
Yeah, very insightful.
Yeah,
Thank
I love
you.
that feedback, because I think that it gets missed sometimes, and we just assume people know to come professionally.
Yeah.
And this is a different generation. My mother's growing up, they wore dresses every day, from like kindergarten through adulthood. Nurses wore the whole suit with the hat,
Yeah.
the whole uniform. And we've just gotten away from some of those norms, and people show up not professionally to interview for a professional position. I can see
Right.
where that would be a hindrance. So
And
I'm
I
glad you
think,
said that.
I think that, people might view that now education is a little more casual in your classroom, right? Like, as a teacher, you may wear leggings or jeans or something like that while you're a kindergarten teacher sitting on the ground with the kids, and that's perfectly acceptable. But for the interview, we do still want to see that you've put some time and
Yes.
effort, and you're putting your professional face forward, more what you might wear for parent-teacher conference night versus what you would wear to teach a lesson to your elementary students.
No, that is such a valid point. Thank you so much. So speaking of that, that's a great segue into those individuals who are listening to or watching this podcast, and they're like, I've always wanted to be in Rockwood. You're born and raised Rockwood pretty much. You've been here your whole career, if I'm not mistaken.
I've been here my whole career, but I didn't go to school in Rockwood.
Right, so
Yep.
MIZ.
ZOU.
And so what would you say to someone who's saying, man, why Rockwood? Why should I come there?
Yeah, so I started off as a teacher in Rockwood, as you just mentioned, and I think that the opportunities that Rockwood has for their new teacher program, Donette and Professional Learning, they just had their meeting yesterday,
Yeah,
right?
it's there.
Right, all about re-envisioning our new teacher orientation, and a lot of effort goes into making sure that our new teachers have the best possible setup to be successful.
Sure.
And that's one thing that for me, you hear all about the rates of people going into education and leaving, and they don't stay. And so I wanted to go to a district where I knew I was going to have all of the supports that in those first couple of years when it's rough, you're new, you're not an expert, that I knew that I was going to be supported, I was going to be able to grow professionally, and that's exactly what my experience has been. I was always, coached as a teacher, but in a way that I knew I could take risks, and if it didn't work out the way I wanted to work out, I was still going to be okay, and I would have people right there cheering me on, and I think that's what people will find when they work in Rockwood. They will find a team, they will find resources. They'll never have to feel like they're alone in anything that they do, and that it's a safe place to take a risk, so that you can hopefully be really innovative in your practices and the things that you're going to do in your classroom, and be creative. And those are the sorts of environments that I personally like to work in. Is a place where I can just kind of be me and find ways to grow and be creative, not be kind of forced into a box.
Yeah.
And that's what I find in Rockwood.
What about non-certified positions? I know we're looking for some of those.
Yeah.
What advice would you have for them? Or why come here?
Well, once again, I think it's a place where you can still grow. It's tremendous resources. You'll work with a team that's really supportive, of you. The compensation is very competitive. We always have openings, and one of my favorite things when you talk about education is that it's recession-proof, right? Like, there's my husband personally has been laid off a couple times in corporate America, and it's nice to know that you're going to have a job, that people are always going to need to be educated. There's going to be schools, or somebody's going to have to take care of our buildings and all of our properties, and another piece with Rockwood just being so big geographically, there's plenty of different buildings and schools that you can work at, that one is probably pretty close to your home, and you can just find a place where you really feel like you can lay some roots and develop a career.
I like that.
Best fit.
Yes, thank you.
Kelly, is there anything in your role now that has become surprising to you or shocking at all?
Yeah, I mean, in my current role, I would say one of the things that is most surprising is the behind the scenes work that it takes to get somebody from applicant to actually onboarded. And what I mean for that is, everything from checking the references to the certifications to sending them to the board to be approved. We have to turn in our information to the board a week in advance before that board meeting. So those deadlines and things like that, I don't think I really realized before. Like, why can't we just hire someone right now? Why can't they start tomorrow? I don't think I realized those things until now I'm on the other side. And it all boils down to, we want to make sure that the individuals that we have working in our schools or on our property are safe to be around kids. And so there's a lot of behind the scenes work that has to happen to make that occur, and it all takes time. Another thing, the state of Missouri requires a disclosure before we offer a teaching position. So if somebody is teaching in another district, I can't even offer them the position until that district fills out the disclosure. And sometimes, it might take 10 days to get that disclosure back, and you're not supposed to offer the position until then. So I would tell people who are looking for, jobs in Rockwood to be patient, that just because maybe you didn't get a call right away doesn't mean we're not interested or we're not going to hire you. It means that there's probably things in the process that are just taking a little bit of time, and sometimes those are outside of our control.
Yeah, that's true, and that's good to know. Really good to know. So what is it that you would say you really like about your job that you didn't think about before? Obviously, every time we get a new job, there's always elements that we weren't even aware of. So is there something either you already knew was going to happen, or you've gotten like, I really like this. It may seem weird to you, but I like it.
I love working with the principals, so coaching them through maybe it's a problem at their building. Maybe it's just like, I don't know how I should staff or who I should put in this position, or so I get to have a lot of great conversations with principals and talk to them about different options. I never want to tell them what to do. I want to be like, well, have you considered this, or have you thought about that? So I love those meetings. I also love doing trainings with the principals and supervisors too on things like hiring practices and evaluations and feedback, things that I'm just passionate about. If somebody wants to listen to me talk about that, I'm all there for it. So those are probably some of my favorite parts of my job.
Yeah, okay. So is there anything, for those that are already hired by Rockwood and working in the district, is there anything that's important for them to know from a human resources standpoint?
Follow the laws.
Yes.
do the right thing, make good choices. I think the important thing to know about human resources is that we're there to help. So, no matter what the situation is, what question you have, I get all kinds of questions. Some are under my umbrella, some are not. And I will always be there to help point the person in the right direction or forward their email along. So I hope that people just feel comfortable coming to myself or another member of the HR team, because we're there to help. You shouldn't get to the point where you get frustrated about something. Just if you don't know, ask, and then I probably won't know either, but I'll help you find the answer.
Sure, yeah.
I like that. Really, that's near the end of our questions, but I do want to ask this one before we head out. Are there any programs or initiatives that you're involved in, either through HR or through another connection to the district, that you're particularly excited about or want to share?
Yeah, so we have Welcome Home Rockwood, which is one of our programs that we have going on. We have grant money for that to basically help any of our Rockwood students of color that might be interested in becoming a teacher. They can apply for that program. We make sure that we have mentoring for them. And then when they are getting to that point where they're in college, they can have scholarship money to help with those college costs, and then we bring them back to Rockwood to student teach, and hopefully eventually get them a job in Rockwood. So that's an awesome program that we have. And then, Cassandra, you and I have gone and gotten to meet with a lot of the different universities, and a lot of universities right now have different non-traditional programs. So if teaching might be a second career for you or something like that, the universities are getting really creative on how you can go from just having a college degree to being a certified teacher really quickly. So I think those initiatives are cool too, so that you don't have to take out a ton of student loans or anything like that, and you can get yourself a teaching certificate and join what I think is an amazing career that has a lot of longevity, but also really rewarding. That we talked earlier about the other positions in Rockwood, and I think that's something I probably should have mentioned, is that regardless of the position that you have in Rockwood, like it's rewarding to see kids every day and see how excited they are to learn. And whether you're watching them at recess or serving their lunch or helping clean up in the hallway, to be around kids every day is exciting and joyful and never a dull moment. So I think that that's one of those benefits that you can't put a price on.
I agree. You did a great job today.
Thank you.
I think you could be like a regular on our show.
Oh, perfect. We're going to need a bigger table.
I know. We're nice and cozy around here. Emily, why don't you wrap us up?
Yeah, well, thank you, Kelly, again for joining us on this episode of Rockwood Connects. To our viewers and listeners, you can watch and listen on YouTube, on our department website, or any podcast platform.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Sollberger. And we hope you enjoyed the podcast. We know you do. Give us comments and compliments and give us feedback as well. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.